It's the front-wheel drive Japanese VTEC legend. No, not that one, the other one. There we go. It's the Honda Integra. The Honda Quint was a variant of their Civic, and it was a perfectly adequate family liftback. And in 1985, it was replaced by the Integra, which was available as a 3-door coupe, 5-door liftback, and a 4-door sedan with a variety of 1.6-liter 4-cylinder engines, making up to 113 horsepower and getting up to 61 mpg. Again, like the Quint and similarly to the Civic, it was a perfectly acceptable family car that got good gas mileage and was reliable and affordable. And Honda thought it would be a good fit for the US as gas prices were making small economy cars more viable. But in the spirit of the Toyota Lexus division, the Acura division, as it was called, was a luxury arm of Honda, and it was unveiled with the Legacy Executive Sedan and the Integra Compact. Now, since the Integra was related to the Civic, it inherited the disc brakes and suspension from the Civic and the CRX. Although, make no mistake, this was not as sporty as the iconic CRX. Now, one would think that selling a variety of similar front-wheel drive family cars in the same place would diminish sales. However, the Integra sold well 225,000 cars in 4 years, and that warranted a second generation. The second gen had its body line smoothed out, and it had a new chassis, a redesigned chassis, in fact, that was smaller per Japanese regulations, and instead of just making a lot of different versions for different markets, they just made one version for the whole production line. Now, this made the car just 2,600 pounds. You could even get a bare bones model with wind-up windows to make it more affordable and even lighter. And yet, despite that facade of affordability, it had a very famous owner, the Emperor of Japan. Yeah! Can you imagine the President of the United States driving around in a Chevy Cruze? That's basically what this was. Now, perhaps he had a better model than the base model, and it probably had a very special engine along with it, because it was probably the best one you could get. And the best one you could get had the B16A, aka the first VTEC engine. The variable valve timing and lift electronic control engine was designed to increase performance without increasing displacement. That would have made it go into a different tax bracket per Japanese rules. But instead, VTEC had 2 cam profiles. One which worked at low RPMs and was designed to maximize efficiency, and the other only activates above a certain RPM, in this case, for the Integra, 5,500 RPM. And when that is exceeded, the other cam timing kicks in and performance improves dramatically. That allowed Honda to get a naturally aspirated 1.7-liter 4-cylinder to make 170 horsepower at 8,200 RPM. The Integra XSI had a 0 to 60 of just 7.2 seconds. The US, of course, didn't get that one, but we did get the GSR model, which had the spoiler, the bigger tires, and a detuned VTEC engine, making 160 horsepower. But that is still pretty good, because Honda's engines are naturally aspirated, are actually designed to meet the emission laws at the time for the US, which meant they didn't need catalytic converters, which meant you could have a closer power figure to the rest of the world. Pretty smart. The GSR is actually one of the rarest Integras ever built, despite being an American-only model, and only around 5,000 of them were ever built over the entire production run. But that brings us to the 3rd generation. This is where things got serious. The Bug Eye was easily the most famous one, and easily the fastest yet. The 1.6-liter 4-cylinder base model now made 140 horsepower, except in the US. where because of emission laws, they actually had higher compression pistons. So there you go, we actually got a fast one, would you look at that. Now the third gen had several trims: the Rally Sport base model, the Luxury Sport, the Special Edition, the Grand Sport Racing, and the Sedan Joyful. That's its actual name, the Sedan Joyful. Aren't you happy? Honda even launched an all-wheel drive version called the ZXi 4-wheel drive, but the real star was the Type R. Following the philosophy of the NSX Type R sports car, the Integra Type R was a lightweight track car. Type R treatment gave the Integra a limited slip diff, a strengthened chassis, a functional aero kit, reworked gear ratios, bigger brakes, and a new 1.8-liter VTEC engine making 200 horsepower at 8,600 RPM. But the biggest thing was that the Type R wasn't big. It only weighed 2,400 pounds thanks to a thinner windshield, aluminum wheels, and a lighter flywheel, and the removal of unnecessary parts like insulation, rear wipers, and air conditioning. That meant the front-wheel drive coupe had a 0 to 60 time of 6.1 seconds, and on the track it was considered to be a rival to other JDM cars like the Supra Mark IV, the WRX STI, and even on some occasions, the mighty Skyline GTR. The lightweight nature of it made it a brilliant driver's car, and over the years, it has been considered one of the best front-wheel drive cars of all time. It's an icon. I think these things are selling for over 100 grand now, depending on the mileage. They are awesome vehicles. I've actually only seen one so far. It's actually not the American one, strangely enough, because we did actually get the Type R, which is weird that we got a high-end premium version of the JDM car, but we did. We actually got the Type R. I haven't seen that one, though. I saw the sedan version, which is only sold in Japan. It's also among the rarest Integras ever built. I think it looks fantastic. It's an amazing car. It was also a very successful car on the track, winning the SCCA Touring Car class 6 times in a row from 1997 to 2002, which was just in time for the 4th generation. And now, I have to say that the American audience members are very confused, since the Integra never came back to America after 2002. For some reason, Acura called it the RSX. I guess maybe it correlates to the NSX names, trying to get that brand recognition tied in, I don't know. Either way, the Integra name was kept everywhere else, so I'm going to keep calling it the Integra. And it was still, guess what, brilliant. 2,600 pound curve weight, McPherson strut suspension, and a 2-liter K20 engine, making 160 horsepower. Now over here in the States, we got the Type S, which had a spoiler, 17-inch sport wheels, a 6-speed manual, and a 210 horsepower K20 Z1. Now we got the Type S last time as well. In fact, I got the Type R as I just mentioned, but we didn't get this Type R. No. The best we could get was the Type S A-Spec Performance Package, which is a mouthful and a half of a name, and it was essentially a Type R without being a Type R. So it has different suspension, better wheels, and a Type R style rear wing. The A-Spec was the fastest version of the Integra America ever got, and it's still brilliant, if not a little underrated compared to the iconic Type R of the 3rd generation. But Japan, of course, did get a 4th generation Type R, and it's the most powerful Integra ever built from the factory to date at 220 horsepower. Not much, but like the previous Type R, it's a handling car, so it had a limited slip diff again, aluminum construction, better suspension, Brembo brakes for Recaro seats, and a 2,600 pound curb weight once again, which is pretty good considering, technology and regulations have evolved to make cars heavier as time progresses, so keeping the same weight is still pretty darn good. And all of this meant it had a 0 to 60 in under 6 seconds and a quarter-mile time of 14.5. Again, that's really good for a front-wheel drive 4-cylinder designed for the corners. And it was really good in those corners. At a flying lap at the Ibiza circuit, it did a 110.6, just 0.2 of a second slower than the original NSX. And yeah, like the third gen, it was also very successful in motor racing, winning the SCCA Touring Car class again in 2006, and the British Touring Car Championship in 2005 and 2006. And then that was it. The Integra RSX was discontinued in 2006, and Honda is now singularly focused on the Civic for its front-wheel drive performance aspirations. But it wasn't the last Integra. With the failure of the Acura ILX, Honda again tried a new 5-door liftback. The Integra, they brought the name back. Now it shares the 11th gen Civic platform and its 1.5-liter turbocharged 4-cylinder, like the Integras of old, but it's a little different because it's a lot bigger, and it's not really the same front-wheel drive coupe that we know. The 2022 Integra does make 200 horsepower and 192 torque, and it's a fine mid-price family car, but it's nowhere near the Integras of old, certainly not the Type Rs that we have come to expect. So they're trying to ship them as much as possible, probably why the first 500 pre-orders of the 2023 model came with an exclusive NFT of the car. That's how you know you're getting desperate when you're selling NFTs along with your vehicle. Now, they did try to remedy this underwhelming start with an A-Spec version with a limited slip diff and a 6-speed manual, but otherwise it was mechanically the same. It's an okay start, to be honest. I mean, the first-gen Integra wasn't exactly stellar either, which is why there are reports of a Type S variant being tested with Civic engines from the Type S or maybe even the Type R. So maybe, if people buy enough of this upcoming Type S, Honda may be willing to resurrect versions of the Type R badge on the new Integra, but that's just optimistic speculation.